Hi, I'm Bill Berry, and welcome to my desert adventures. In this episode, my friend Robert Marcos and I are trying to find the wreckage of a B-24 Liberator Bomber.
Hey, it's Robert Marcos, riding with my friend Bill Berry. We are headed out to the site of a B-24 crash that occurred on October 15th, 1943.
Getting to these sites is never easy. We found the location of the site via Google Earth, but just driving to a place where you could park your truck and hike more than 2.5 miles was quite an adventure in and of itself. I found a location where I could park the truck about a mile from the site, but unfortunately the road that I'd seen on the map was washed out.
Tell me what you just decided.
Well, we came to a ravine, and the depth of it and the clearance for this truck is just it pushed me to my limit. I don't want to try it, and so it's going to force us to have to hike an extra half hour.
Holy smokes, you got to be kidding me.
We'll see if we can get a little closer on this other roadway. But... Well, we got as close as we could to the site with our truck and began our planning.
What's your game plan on this flight, Bill?
Well, I thought I'd get some elevation, fly over to that ridge, that low ridge there, and then get up high enough where we can fly. I think the bomber is somewhere up on that ridge.
I think with that, with the wreckage having been up there for 60 years and that rust covering it, I think it's going to match these rocks, man, all the wreckage.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it. But...
This is pretty exciting. From over a mile away, Bill launched his Mavic 3 drone, and we actually located the wreckage using the drone, which is the first. I mean, we have been flying drones looking for wreckage for like a year and never found it until today. So it's very hard to discern wreckage from rocks, but not today. Today the wreckage is really standing out.
Having the right equipment for these adventures is critical. A friend of mine sent me a couple of pair of gloves from ATG. He was a sales rep with the company. On our last hike, I wore a pair of gloves out climbing up the granite, and I knew he was worked for a glove manufacturer.
And those gloves fell apart, if I'm not mistaken.
One hike, it ruined that one pair of gloves. And so I asked him, I said, well, what do you have that might work in terms of the abrasion? And he said, granite is the worst for gloves. I'm going to send you a few pairs and you test them out for me. So
wait, we get to test these gloves out?
We're testing them out today on our hike, because we know after just looking we're going to be climbing steep things where we're going to have 3 points of contact for so we're always going to have a hand on the ground. On October 15th, 1943 at 7:26 p.m. a B-24 Liberator Bomber took off from the Blyte Army Air Base, California, on a routine navigation training flight. At 7:45 p.m., from an altitude of 6,000 feet and west of the airfield, the pilot called the tower to report that they were having engine trouble and asked for permission to land west to east on runway 8. He was granted permission by the tower, which stopped all other traffic. Immediately after this, the ship acknowledged receipt of the permission, which was followed by a voice transmission which the tower could not read. At 7:48 p.m. the tower saw the flame as the bomber crashed into the mountains. Well, we headed out, and we knew we had about a 2-hour hike.
3 points of contact, my friend.
That was quite a waterfall there.
Good job.
Here's a drone view of the canyon that led to the wreck site. You can see that it's very steep and difficult terrain. We were more than a mile from the actual crash site when we found the first part. I think this might be the first sign of the crash. We're at the very bottom of the... Yeah, it looks like a fuel.
So check out this old steel rivet build. It's all...
Well, this is really unexpected. We're at the very bottom of the canyon, a long ways where we expected to see any signs of this air wreck. And we're picking up pieces down here that are reflected out of the sun. And this is obviously a piece of aluminum.
Same rivets that we saw earlier. This is a part of the fuselage.
Yep.
very, very, very thin fuselage.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before we started finding all kinds of parts.
15 pounds, Bill. It's just like amazing. Here's a support arm with an inch thick, and it weighs about 80 pounds.
Jesus.
It's huge.
That's the armor plating to protect it.
Look how it's shaped, exactly like a floorboard. A couple of bolts holding it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Look at this, it's a seat, Robert.
Oh my God.
And there was a young pilot sitting in that when it crashed.
We found a heater control mechanism for the cockpit right next to the seat. From this point on, we found parts everywhere. The plane had crashed above us and was strewn down the mountain for more than a mile.
Look at the size of what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
It probably weighs 60 pounds. It's got writing on the side. Look at the aluminum all cracked from the heat and the explosion. So Bill just found the what I'm going to call the propeller lock, the caps, to hold the propellers in place. You can see one prop came out of there, one prop came out of there. And you know, Bill, I was in the Air Force in electronics, and so seeing electrical circuits like this really amazes me, to see the technology that they had back in 1943. Major piece of the aircraft here.
This piece.
We were still hundreds of feet from the impact site, and the debris just kept getting thicker and thicker and thicker.
So this isn't, look at all the rocks here, and that is not rock. That is a huge 200-pound piece of melted aluminum.
Yeah.
Bill, I'm thinking that that is probably some kind of electronic sub-assembly. Here's a very big metal part. I'm gonna say looks
Oh, this is a wheel.
like landing gear.
This is landing gear
Yeah,
right here.
and then here's where a wheel would have been. Just a scene of devastation here at the B-24 crash site, about 8 miles west of the Blythe Army Airfield.
We placed a flag at the site to honor the 10 young men who lost their lives in service of their country. This large part of the site was consumed by fire. There was melted and burned debris everywhere. We still hadn't reached the point of impact on the ridge above us when the plane hit that ridge on a moonless night. It was going almost 200 miles an hour. We were shocked at what we found at the summit.
This is just amazing. It is the actual site of the impact of the B-24 on October 15th, 1943. You see the some of the control arms inside the cockpit, and this is all glass. This is broken glass from the windshield of the aircraft. This is all glass. The aircraft came in from this direction, was making a big sweeping left turn, and hit the rock wall right here. Just terrible, very sobering. You see the devastation on the rocks. You see how unnatural the rocks look. Here's wiring. Here's melted aluminum and fuselage. And here is aluminum impregnated in the rocks, which is something I have never ever seen. It's metal completely exploded into the rock. And then the vast majority of the aircraft went on over the edge and down this valley.
Well, we sat down and had lunch at the top, contemplated what actually happened right where we were sitting, and then started our way back down the canyon on the other side where parts of the plane had actually rolled into the ravines down below us.
Here we are on the summit, and we know there's debris on this side too. It's going to be tough getting down in there.
Okay, all set?
I'm set.
I like sidestepping like as though we're on a snowy hill. After pull, what is that?
This turbocharger is the last piece of wreckage we found on our trip. It was at the bottom of the canyon on the other side of where we found most of the debris.
Just keep your body close to the wall.
There were obstacles everywhere, including this 25-foot waterfall that we had to scale down.
Just make sure you grab solid parts. Yeah, that's the place. That's where I went. There's a step below that too. Get a good grip. There you go. His gloves held up just fine. And they sure make a difference to have a pair of gloves on. And that rubber grip was great.
Well, we finally made it back to the truck. Man, it was a tough hike, but we sure had a great time on another desert adventure.